April 17, 2018. LaGuardia Airport in New York City, USA. Flight 1380 was a scheduled passenger flight from New York to Dallas Love Field. This Boeing 737 aircraft was included in Southwest Airlines in 2005. This modern passenger aircraft was powered by two jet engines of the CFM56-7B series. The flight was led by Tammy Jo Schultz, a 56-year-old former U.S. fighter pilot. Captain Schultz was the first female fighter pilot to join the U.S. Navy. After leaving the U.S. Navy in 1994, Captain Schultz had been working as a captain pilot in Southwest Airlines, and since then she had completed a total of 11,715 flight hours, out of which 10,513 hours was the experience of flying a similar Boeing 737 plane. As the first officer, 44-year-old pilot Darren Lee Ellisor was flying with the captain. Like Captain Schultz, First Officer Darren Lee Ellisor was also a former American fighter pilot. First Officer Ellisor had been with Southwest Airlines since 2008 and had accumulated 9,508 hours of professional flying experience during that time. The flight had 5 crew members along with 144 passengers that day. After all the passengers and crew members are on board, the pilots start the engine of the plane. After completing its roll-off process, plane slowly moves towards the runway through the taxiway. And after completing all their pre-flight checks, Flight 1380 takes off from New York Airport at around 10:43 in the morning. Slowly following its prescribed flight path, the plane continues its flight. Unaware of any impending danger, 40-year-old passenger Jennifer Reardon was enjoying her flight while looking out of the window. About 20 minutes after takeoff, at 11:03 in the morning, when the flight was flying at an altitude of 32,000 feet, suddenly there was a loud bang in the left side engine. The detonated engine ignites, and the shattered pieces of the engine quickly hit the plane's wings, the fuel cabin, and the plane's exterior wall. Then suddenly a piece of the engine hit the windscreen of row number 14 rapidly, and with a jolt the windscreen broke and separated from the plane. This was the same seat where passenger Jennifer Reardon was sitting. At an altitude of 34,000 feet, due to the sudden breakage of the windscreen, the air pressure in the cabin suddenly decreases, and with a jerk, the air pressure pulls Jennifer Reardon out of the window. Before Jennifer Reardon can exit the plane completely, a passenger sitting next to her grabs her legs. Half of Jennifer Reardon's body was now hanging out of the plane, and pieces of the engine were also hitting her body along with the strong wind. Then daringly a cabin crew comes to the window, and with the help of some passengers pulls Jennifer Reardon back inside the plane. Although by then Jennifer Reardon had suffered very serious injuries. Oxygen masks now hang in the passenger cabin due to the decompression caused by broken windows. Due to the high air pressure, some luggage kept in the passenger cabin starts falling rapidly here and there, due to which some passengers also get hurt. Unaware of the accident in the passenger cabin, the pilots hear the engine bang even in the cockpit. Before the pilots could understand anything, suddenly the fire alarm starts ringing in the cockpit, and the plane starts tilting rapidly to the right after becoming uncontrollable. While tilting, the plane now tilts to an angle of about 41 degrees, and the bank angle warning alarm also starts sounding in the cockpit.
Bank angle, bank angle.
Taking care of himself, the pilot immediately switches off the autopilot and tries to straighten the plane by leveling the wings of the plane. After a lot of effort, the pilot finally controls the plane and straightens it. Then suddenly the altitude warning alarm starts ringing in the cockpit.
Pull up, terrain, pull up, terrain, pull up, terrain.
While already controlling the plane with great difficulty, this new problem comes in front of the pilot. While trying to understand this warning alarm, Captain Schultz turns her attention to the instrument panel. Engine number 1 had completely lost its power, and the oil pressure of the engine was also zero. The complete failure of one engine and the constant blaring altitude warning alarm in the cockpit leave both the pilots upset for a few moments, and it is natural for any human being to get distracted in such a situation. But perhaps it will be called the experience of old fighter pilots that after getting distracted for a while, immediately both the pilots start trying to control the plane by controlling their senses. Due to the altitude warning alarm and low cabin pressure, both the pilots put on their oxygen masks and immediately start bringing the plane down rapidly. By turning off the selector switch of the stopped engine number 1, the pilot controls the warning alarms that sound continuously in the cockpit. During this, the pilots keep trying to contact the New York ATC tower. And about 2 minutes after the engine explosion, the pilots finally succeed in contacting the ATC tower. After contacting the ATC tower, the captain informs the ATC controller about the engine fire and gives information about bringing the plane down in emergency. After getting this information, the ATC controller again asks the captain whether you are bringing your plane down, after which the captain again confirms to the ATC controller that the engine of the plane has caught fire and they are bringing the plane down. After confirming the information about engine fire, the ATC controller asks the captain at which airport you want to land in emergency, after which the captain informs the ATC controller to make an emergency landing at Philadelphia Airport. The captain then contacts the Philadelphia ATC tower and requests permission to make an emergency landing at Philadelphia Airport after informing them of the plane's trouble. The ATC controller asks the captain to turn in the heading 250 direction, allowing the emergency landing, so that the plane can land directly at the airport without losing any time. By now, the captain and the first officer had also come to know that the engine was not on fire but it had exploded. Captain asks the first officer whether he is able to control the plane completely, and in response the first officer confirms to the captain that the plane is still completely under his control. Captain Schultz now announces in the passenger cabin that they are going to make an emergency landing at Philadelphia Airport, as well as appeals to the passenger to maintain calmness and courage. Following the instructions of the Philadelphia ATC tower, Flight 1380 slowly approaches the airport. The Philadelphia ATC controller asks the pilot again if the plane's engine is still on fire. In response, Captain Schultz tells ATC that the plane's engine is not on fire but that engine is not working. Captain also tells ATC controller to be ready for emergency and fire services at the airport. With their courage and understanding, the pilots, while controlling the plane with the help of one engine, slowly start bringing it towards the airport. After some time, when the situation appears to be a little under control, the captain asks the first officer to talk to the flight crew to find out what is going on in the passenger cabin after all. After talking to the cabin crew, the first officer tells the captain about the broken window in the passenger cabin and injured passenger Jennifer Reardon. Knowing about the broken window, the captain decides to reduce the speed of the plane a little and also warns the ATC tower about this and asks them to keep an ambulance and doctors ready at the airport. ATC instructs the captain to land on runway 27L, assuring them of keeping all emergency and medical services ready. Slowly following the ATC route, the pilots very carefully start bringing the plane towards the runway. On approaching the runway, the first officer contacts the airport ATC and informs them to land on runway 27L. After which ATC gives them permission to land and also informs the direction and speed of the wind at the airport. On reaching the runway, the captain instructs the flight crew to prepare for landing, after which the flight crew makes all the preparations with great courage and promptness, also at the same time encourages the passenger. Taking the control of the flight in her hands, the captain starts bringing the plane slowly closer to the runway, while the first officer starts helping the captain by checking all other controls and flight speed, etc. The plane coming down slowly finally lands safely on the runway. After seeing death so closely, all the passengers and cabin crew come to life and everyone thanks God with folded hands. As soon as the plane stops on the runway, emergency medical services and fire brigade vehicles immediately take all the passengers out of the plane safely and send the injured passengers to the hospital. With the bravery and courage of the pilots and cabin crew, 148 out of 149 people on board the plane were saved safely. Unfortunately, injured passenger Jennifer Reardon dies from her severe injuries. The United States Federal Aviation Administration, along with the NTSB, immediately began investigating the accident. The investigation found the main cause of the accident to be a crack in the engine blade of the plane. Generally, such a crack occurs in any metal part only when that metal passes through some pressure for a long time. After this, on April 23, 2018, Southwest Airlines also announced that they will re-examine the CFM engines installed in all their airplanes so that any kind of engine fault can be detected on time. In its investigation, NTSB found that these engine blades were manufactured by a company named CFM International, which was a joint venture between two companies named General Electric and Safran Aircraft Engines. These blades were made using titanium metal, and before the accident these blades had gone through about 17,000 flight cycles, which was much more than their prescribed life limit. Due to this, during that flight, these blades were broken in the air itself due to weakness. In their investigation, the investigation agencies also found that the frame around the engine was not strong enough to prevent the broken blades and engine parts from going out so that they could not damage other parts of the plane. For this reason, the broken pieces of the engine collided with the wings and window of the plane, causing significant damage to the wings, and the window of the plane was also uprooted. After the investigation, the Federal Aviation Administration ordered retesting of the blades of all such engines so that any defective blades would be detected and replaced immediately. The courage and bravery of the pilots and cabin crew during this incident was also highly appreciated, and they were also honored with several awards.